Ladies and gentlemen, citizens of the universe, this is Roster Watch. My name is Alex Dunlap. I'm joined by Cody Carpentier. And Cody, today we're going to be talking about our top 10 rookie running backs in the 2025 class. And dude, believe it or not, it's a class where narrowing it down to the top 10 actually kind of hurts. This thing goes 20, 25 deep with running backs that if I were an NFL team, I would be happy to have on my team. And like, you can make a case for, like I said, a good 20 of them to be able to come in and be immediate starters.
That's the whole thing. When you're talking about this rookie running back class, it is the density of it, which makes it painful. And there's a guy on here that we're not even going to talk about. I'm just going to throw it up from the jump because it's going to give you an idea of the depth of this thing. We both love Damian Martinez as a player, but neither of us have him inside our top 15. And there's people out there that are well-known, well-respected that have him as a top 5 back in the class, which I think is a little cockamamie. Still, the point is proven. The density from running back, I would say 6 to 25, is ridiculous.
Yeah. I think at the very end, after we each get through our top 10, there's a question I want to ask you that's going to be a tough one that we'll end the show with, as far as this sort of going to test your mettle as far as the way that you would pick through the depth in this class. But before we get started on that, there was a couple of things. I'm going to put an update up to the ultimate Bestball cheat sheet, the underdog cheat sheet over at rosterwatch.com to version 1.2 at some point on Friday or Saturday. And just kind of nitpicking a couple things here with it, as I've been doing a few more, practice runs with it. I find myself just a couple spots where I find myself saying, man, I'm not sure if I like this or where this guy's slotted or whatever. And just two specific things. One has to do with the Rams wide receivers that I wanted to ask you about. The other has to do with a cockamamie running back dichotomy, right? But as far as the Rams wide receivers right now, where are you on Puka Nacua, and where does he stack up vis-a-vis the rest of these players that are going in the first round, such as, the obvious dudes at the top like Jamar Chase, Justin Jefferson, CeeDee Lamb? It was that, Puka Nacua would be going around where we would see Amon-Ra St. Brown and Nico Collins going, and before the Malik Neighbors and the Brian Thomases of the world. I thought with the signing of Devontae Adams, he at least needed to be – I'm not going to consider Puka Nacua before I consider a GOAT like Malik Neighbors, or really either of those LSU guys from last year, right? Neighbors or Brian Thomas, especially with Christian Kirk now gone in Jacksonville. But I started thinking to myself, I'm like, Devontae Adams last year – If we're not going, like, if you were just going by the eyeball test alone, you would say he looked just as awesome last year as he's looked in a long time. And the other thing about him was it almost felt like he got stronger towards the end of the season. When was that? Was it the Jacksonville game? I might be getting the exact game mixed up, but there was one where he went for like 202 touchdowns on just massive targets. Down the stretch toward the end of the season, but it wasn't like that was a sole outburst, right? He was really, really, really getting it done to end the season, and actually looking good and looking fast. And you know what I mean? I can't help but think that him with Matthew Stafford in Los Angeles, I don't think he's going to render Puka Nacua useless or render him bad or whatever. He's been so consistent and so good. But don't you think that, like, isn't it hard to just stack Puka Nacua up versus like the AJ Browns and the Drake Londons of the world, even once you get past Neighbors and BTJ?
I would tell you right now that I feel a little bit better about Jackson Smith and Jigba than I do about Puka Nacua in 2024 or 2025. And that sounds wrong, just given that Nakua's old counterpart Cooper Kupp is now in Seattle with Jackson, and it's a whole new situation in Seattle. Whereas, like you just said, with Los Angeles, it's like, well, he got Devontae Adams, who I think's in a much better spot than Cooper Kupp was ever. They expressed interest in going after Brock Bowers in the draft last year. The Rams did. What if they go after a Mason Taylor or a Colston Loveland, a proper tight end in this class? That's a first 2-round pick, and we know their love for running the ball. I don't think Puka is going to have this, thing where he misses 6 games again by any means. Um, and his receptions per game went up by a full reception, 6.2 to 7.2 this past year. And Cup was hurt for a bunch of it. We know Adams is going to come in and pull in 8 to 10 targets. And it's got to sort of go back to what the expectation was on day one I got to take the thing all the way back to, all right, imagine not this last year, but the year before when you entered the season, you saw, all right, this is Cooper Kupp with this rookie Puka Nacua. This was before Puka really broke out, right? Everyone's like, well, damn, man, Cooper Kupp's the guy. Well, I think Adams still has that in him. Yeah, everything we expected out of Cooper Kupp, and Cooper Kupp is really hit the downward trend. I don't feel as good about Puka Nacua when I'm looking at these best ball rankings. The cheat sheet, sorry, not rankings. I'd much rather kick the can on Puka, down to even a Drake London or a Jackson Smith and Jigba. Those would be 2 guys that I would much rather draft than Puka Nacua, I think, at the current stage.
Okay, so I think I agree with you, but what that's going to mean is getting very little Puka Nacua for right now. Like the market hasn't adjusted quite that much. I think where the market has adjusted is to getting him, and you can't tell because again, there's the trailing ADP data before the Devontae Adams stuff, right? But it just feels like in these drafts, it feels like I'm seeing Malik Neighbors and BTJ go ahead of Puka often enough, right? To where I feel like that's where the market has either settled for now or where he kind of is and whatever the eventual slip will be, right? As far as people begin to build projections and kind of think about this more seriously.
He's about what, 7th overall?
No, I mean, where I've been seeing him going right now has been more like it depends on whether or not Brock Bowers goes, but I've been seeing him more like kind of going more like 10th now, just closer to the turn.
Okay.
So now, as far as what his actual ADP is, it's the draft's going off right now. As far as with the trailing ADP data go, it's been Jamar Chase, Saquon Barkley, Bijan, Justin Jefferson, Gibbs, Lamb, Puka. So what is that?
7.
7. Yeah. So he's like right now, like if you take he's going ahead of like Nico Collins and Amon-Ra St. Brown if you just look at the ADP. But I don't feel like the drafts recently have been indicative of that. I feel like a lot of that's trailing stuff since before the Devontae Adams news.
I guess part of and I know you're entering the Devontae Adams thing in. We'll see what the ADP does with that. I assume that brings him down a touch, probably behind Nico, probably behind him on Ron Brian Thomas, and more into the neighbors conversation. I kind of play the projection game. I just brought it up. I kind of play the projection game, especially in March and April. You kind of have to before the draft. And before the season gets here, and try to find some values. I don't think Puka Nacua today is a value. I think he's maybe at the top of where he'll end up being. It's only going to go down from here until day one of the NFL season.
Is Devontae Adams a value? I mean, current his ADP right now is like 40, but he's not going 40 now, right? He's that was before we
That's like what? That's like that's probably like Mike Evans. Like,
yeah, no, that's exactly right. That so it's around where you see, where Mike Evans is going right now. That's about where Devontae Adams was going, and where the ADP sort of has him baked in right now. Right, Mike Evans is actually a little bit ahead of him. But I just, Xavier Worthy still has trailing ADP data that has him going ahead of Devontae Adams.
say why? Like, I know I just brought up Mike Evans randomly, but like, why is Godwin nowhere near this tier in ADP?
I think he's out of sight, out of mind, coming off injury. I think also that people, when they think about the Tampa Bay Bucks situation, there are a lot of people that are just dug in to still believing that, just really, really, really wanting to make Jalen McMillan a thing. They have their Jalen McMillan bags already kind of loaded up, thinking that Godwin was going to not sign back with Tampa Bay, and they don't want to believe that Chris Godwin can come back and be awesome, even though Chris Godwin started out last year on just the most epic tear. Like people forget the tears that he, and I know it wasn't. I know he didn't play long, but Rashee Rice also. We can't forget what his usage was like before he got hurt. But people forget about Godwin and they forget about Rashee Rice. Is and
Well,
5 minutes ago, it was the start of the 2024 season where we thought that we had an epic smash on our hands.
it's like Godwin was on. He started out the second best season in his career in yards per game. Like he was on pace for double-digit touchdowns, first time ever, 1,400 yards, first time ever. And like we all know, Mike Evans is only getting older, right? He's probably going to maybe continue this 1,000-yard thing, and McMillan's going to get his work. But there's a clear running game. There's clearly a top 10, top 7 offensive line in the league, and Baker's still there. Like they're just going to run this thing back, right? I know they lose Liam Cohen, but they're still going to run this thing back, and it's going to be through Chris Godwin again, and he's going to be healthy. So like I'm trying to pull up his ADP where Godwin's at. Like Godwin's what? He's not even the top. What is this? The top 50? This is showing me.
Chris Godwin, he's going off at 58 right now overall. Wide receiver 33.
Wrong. Wrong. Like wrong. Like I don't understand sometimes guys like him. Like it happens every year. There's always a couple guys that people just like out of sight, out of mind, forget about it. He didn't give me last year what I wanted, so you just tank him. And I guess it's kind of the same thing in the opposite direction that we get every single year with like so and so finished as a wide receiver 1. He's automatically the wide receiver 1 this year. It's just like the consensus take is that they just run out to what just happened. Saquon's running back 1, Jamar Chase is wide receiver 1. Automatically, no analysis given, no analysis taken. Just what we knew is what we got. And then it's the same thing for guys like Godwin. It's like, oh, he got hurt, so that means he's not going to do anything next year. It's like, well, I would take Godwin today over Cortland Sutton, Chris Olave, Jalen Waddle. I mean, he's going to be the receiver 1. Take him over Jordan Addison. We don't even have a quarterback for DK Metcalf yet. That's like 7 dudes, you know what I'm saying, that in ADP are all ahead of him.
Yeah, I can agree. I think so. You like him better than Sutton, the Suttons, the Addisons, the Olaves, the Waddles, Metcalf, all that stuff.
Again, look at and the reason I say that is like, look at all the number 2s you just listed off. Waddle's a 2, Addison's a 2, Metcalf's a split 1. You look at Olave, who is dealing with, off-field stuff plus quarterback stuff. Sutton, I think you could, there's maybe a conversation to be had there, but they're clearly going to continue to add pieces. They added Ingram. They're probably going to add a receiver. They're probably going to add a running back. Like, I'm not sure Sutton's capable of taking the target share that I think Godwin will when he gets back healthy this next year. And I know Godwin's a pseudo number 2 as well, but I think from a target share perspective, you're going to see him be the number 1 again this year.
But the way that the best ball cheat sheets built, and of course, if you guys want access to it, go to rosterwatch.com, get a pro membership. That'll get you access to all of our off-season like scouting reports and our rankings and the Dynasty top 250, and which Cody just did a huge overhaul on his. Trash Man's working on overhauling his so those two can have their consensus Dynasty top 250. It's really like a Dynasty 350 though right now, Cody, with all the players you added. For all your startups. And then, of course, once the season comes, you'll have access to the maniacal, magical, mystical, mythical ultimate 3-step cheat sheet for redraft leagues, which is, of course, our flagship product at rosterwatch.com. But as I'm putting it together, if you're familiar with how the cheat sheet works, it's just leverage versus ADP, right? And and you're taking guys at advantageous spots where we feel like when we see how drafts are falling and we're running so many of these. For me, Cody, we've talked about it before. I think the strategy for now is to lean in on these rookie running backs, push them up the cheat sheet a little bit, get good, trustworthy veteran wide receivers early, and just fill with running back. And there are a couple sweet spots. One of the sweet spots is I want to come away with, when possible, when it makes sense, right? With Travion Henderson or with Quinshon Judkins, right? And it's just crazy to me that I can get those guys right now, So Quinshon's ADP is 71.5. So you can get him at the 6-7 turn, right? Henderson is at 63. So you can get him at the 5-6 turn. Now, here's my issue with Godwin is I feel like even though Godwin right now he's going at 58.1, right?
Mm-hmm.
So if I move, I would like to have a choice between Godwin and Travion Henderson, right? On the sheet, because those guys are going off within 5 picks of one another. And I feel like that's a good value. You've talked me into it, right? I do want Godwin more than I want Addison and Waddle and Metcalf and stuff. But in order to make it happen to where I still have a choice to where I'm not forced to take Godwin over Travion Henderson or Quinshon Judkins, that means there's a little bit of a puzzle that we have to go through here, as you know very well, as the curator of the half-point PPR and standard cheat sheet during draft season. Just where are you in general on Alvin Kamara and Kenneth Walker?
Ken Walker right now, I'm at a bit of a crossroads. I think that Ken Walker is everything that we kind of expected him to be. Obviously, been hurt. Charbonnet's in that backfield. I would love to not have a Charbonnet in that backfield. But my expectation, I guess, into the next season is probably going to be some sort of a split. Whereas like Kamara, and I also don't quite know what that, I mean, that's the thing about like certain situations. We rarely see this where it's like a complete blow up of an offense. And Clint Kubiak's now up there and he brings in MVS, who MVS had a bunch of success with him in New Orleans. So it's
I
like,
wouldn't call it a bunch of success. I mean,
this is MVS's words. MVS was asked about it. He had 17 catches last year for 385 yards and 4 touchdowns. You remember how annoying it was to see the stat line at the end of a week and it's like 2 for 117 touchdown MVS. You're like, well, that's worth nothing to me. But it's like that it was successful. It was his best year in his career in yards per reception. So if you add that into that New Orleans offense, it's a different piece, right? And we know JSN Cup's there. They've been mocked receivers and tight ends. I think there's going to be a focal point of running the football, but that offensive line sucks.
Yeah, well,
and Charbonnet is also there. And then I think you bring in the other thing with Alvin Kamara, whose contract is at an all-time high. We've seen the mock drafts of Ashton Genty going 9th overall. We've also seen mocks of, Jackson Dart or Shador going there. And we've heard the buzzing of Derek Carr post June 1 cut, post June 1 trade. Their offensive line could use some interior help as well as a left tackle. And both of those situations to me are just stayaways, at least until we see something come to fruition of Seattle revamps its offensive line, does something, and New Orleans shows us a direction. Because I fully would internally believe whichever direction they go, if they go quarterback or if they go running back at 9th overall, I think they should go offensive line or something else. If they go quarterback or running back, go quarterback, Carr is definitely gone. If they go running back, Kamara is definitely gone post June 1. So there's a lot of stuff on the table with both of these rosters. And for those reasons, I believe that a Henderson and a Judkins are better values, better options, just because of their play styles and abilities that we can continue to talk about when we talk about these top 10 guys, because they're definitely in there, obviously. And even the guys like David Montgomery, who we know is attached to a prolific offense and could stumble into the David Montgomery role, the LeGarrette Blount role, where you just
lead the league in rushing touchdowns.
Exactly. And kind of the same could be said for James Conner in a certain way, even though Trey Benson's in that backfield. I sort of feel better about James Conner than I do either Walker or Kamara.
Okay, I'm going to circle back to that exact James Conner thing with my second question, but I think I've gotten my answer here about how I can sort of remaneuver things here on this sheet to be able to get Godwin ahead, just get him just leverage Godwin a little bit against ADP here and still give us a choice. If I don't think you'll need to, but if you if you feel like you need to go wide receiver here and not go running back, if you have the option for Henderson and Judkins, I can make that happen on the sheet and give you a good shot at those guys. But in doing so,
Are there worlds where this box right here ahead of Godwin and Henderson of like Ken Walker, Olave, Kamara, Sutton, is there worlds where you're getting any of those four guys in this setup? Because if there's worlds where you're getting any of those four guys, I'm out. I might be a little bit in on Sutton right now. I'm a little bit like a little tiny speck,
yeah.
little teensy hair.
Oh, okay, no. Well, right now, as it's currently set up, yes, there is a world where you could
I don't want to live in that world.
not Kenneth Walker, not Kamara, but possibly Sutton or Olave.
I
But
don't want to live in that world.
okay, all right. Well, I'm saying what I can do to fix it is I don't know if I can fix it right now without totally breaking ADP. I could probably get them ahead of Addison Metcalf.
Who? Henderson and Godwin?
Henderson, Godwin, and the choice for Judkins.
I mean, even the Judkins Pearsall thing is pretty sick.
Yeah, but no, but Pearsall's already okay. Well, look, this is a puzzle that we're gonna have to figure out. I'm trying to a little bit behind the curtain here. This is
If
how
I ask you today, and I know how the cheat sheet's built, so
because we can't totally break the ADP and give people 100% exposure to anybody in these first 5 rounds. It's virtually impossible. The closest we came last year.
Well,
the closest we ever came was last year with Malik Neighbors.
And that was exactly where I was going to go with this question, is that like, I want to get your thoughts on it. I know it's March 21st, but this is when you can really get some sick values in best ball. If we believe that we're only going to get positive stuff out from the workout warrior that is Chris Godwin, whose wife is like a physical therapist or a doctor down there in Tampa. He's got great weather. He's got great doctors, great everything surrounded around him. He's a receiver that we look at in the archetypes of these guys that can last a long time, like the Thielens and the Cups and stuff like this. If you believe, like I believe, in what Chris Godwin is, who he is, and this offense, why wouldn't, and I'll, honest question, why wouldn't you allow yourself to break it just like we did with Neighbors last year when we said no matter what, Malik Neighbors, no matter what, because we know we're right here. He's going to get 1 million targets. He's going to get 12, 13, 1,400 yards. He's going to press for double-digit touchdowns. And I'm not saying Godwin's going to do that. What I'm saying is if we believe wholeheartedly in what Godwin brings to the table versus a bevy of these other guys, why wouldn't you break ADP for him? And
Well, as you know very well, all right. So because we talk theory of the cheat sheet, but like not to give away our all of our secrets here, but it's like the reason why is because if I'm going to get Godwin up into that area to where you can consider taking him at some point in the.
I'm not asking if you believe it or or theories.
No,
I'm just asking about your analysis of like, do you think Godwin can be that guy?
Well, all right. Whether or not I think Godwin can be that guy, there's something I need to explain about the structure of the sheet. We want to get Omari and Hampton, right?
Correct.
Then the thing's built to where you're probably going to get Omari and Hampton. Okay. So now we just have to think about it. It's like Godwin right now is going at the end of the 5th round. Okay. Omari and Hampton right now is going at the end of the 4th round. There could be a situation where you could find yourself in a spot where the thing's not being built to where you're taking Godwin at value. And the way that it's built right now, you would have to take Hampton ahead of him because we have Hampton boosted up to where you're going to likely get him ahead of his ADP, right? But there are other players there who you could also get while getting I don't want to make it to be, it's like you're having to take Godwin, with 12 picks early. I'd like to be able to get Rashee Rice and Godwin,
and then just
Omari and Hampton, Rashee Rice and Chris Godwin, or if you don't want Godwin, get Henderson or Judkins. If your draft falls that way, because you don't know if people are picking first, if they're picking 12, where if they're going to be on a turn right there to where then you're forcing them to take Godwin at the 501. I think that it's just from the building of the sheet, I think I have a good idea of where I need to move him. So
So even if you believe that Godwin should be in the Devontae Adams, Mike Evans spot, which is like 34 to 40, and right now he's going off at 58. You're saying the theory is and the game plan is, and it sort of goes with the conversation yesterday about Torrey Horton. It's about playing the market as the market grows and just being the leader in the market, but not getting overextended within the market.
yeah, and just saying it's like, look, I'm gonna pay a little bit of a premium here, but I'm not gonna pay a super premium, and I'm gonna make up for it by taking discounts on these other guys as they fall, and when they do fall, and we're leveraged against ADP correctly, that means that we instead of just going up and getting Godwin there, like let's get somebody else, and then let's just take let's take a little bit and extend ourselves a tiny bit for Godwin, but make sure that we're not doing it at the behest of another player who's fallen at what we feel like should be their proper ADP. So, and that's why when you say you break ADP, you break ADP whenever you begin to unstack rounds, if that makes sense. And look, none of that on the cheat sheet is stuff that you're ever thinking about. Like that's stuff that we have to think about and built in, so a toddler could use this thing,
And that's
right?
why you come listen to the show every single day and you hear, the theories and strategies behind it. And you know why we're bullish on a Chris Godwin.
And one other quick thing, and because I know we need to get into the top 10, we'll put a timestamp on the bottom of this, Cody, saying if you came for the top 10 running backs, just go to the 30-minute mark or whatever. But the one other thing, how do you feel now that Elijah Mitchell is gone and Jordan Mason is gone in San Francisco? How do you stack up Isaac Guerendo versus Trey Benson?
That's a good question. I thought you were going to just go straight San Francisco question right there. In Dynasty, Benson got a boost. I have him at the overall player 75 in the top 150. And Guerendo, I think at like 120. So I got Guerendo down kind of in like the Tony Pollards, just below Zach Charbonnet. And then for Benson, I mean, again, he's 2 years younger. And I just go back to the big thing that we always kind of hold into our hand here in our pocket is our rookie analysis of the player. And I like Trey Benson a lot. And I think that the role in Arizona will behoove him once he gets it. So I have like Benson actually side by side with like David Montgomery, just behind Caleb Johnson. And
What
this
you're
rookie,
talking about for Dynasty.
I'm talking about for Dynasty. Yeah.
Okay.
So, I mean, in theory, it's again, we're talking about two guys that aren't really the starters. So
Yeah,
that's why
yeah. We're talking about two guys that look both like they're epic handcuffs.
correct. So I'm just telling you, I have them like 45 spots apart in Dynasty. I haven't really thought about either of them from a seasonal perspective.
What do you think about for redraft though? For the best ball?
Well, I mean,
if for 2025, I think what it is you're taking these guys and you're saying if James Conner or Christian McCaffrey were to get hurt, which clearly is well within the realm of possibility.
Well,
which player,
we know 100% San Francisco is going to add a running back, whether it's like a Devin Neal or a Harvey, RJ Harvey, something like this. They're going to add,
yeah,
or Bashal Tootin. They're going to add something in San Francisco. They just will because they do every year. But I do think in best ball, Guerendo's the guy that's going to give you, the 3 30-point bombs. Whereas if Benson becomes the starter in week 4, week 5, I'm not sure you're going to get that high end, nuclear output directly. I really like Benson, but in best ball, I can tell myself the story. It's probably Guerendo.
I'm moving them back to back, and I'm going to play the ADP and just have Benson one spot ahead of Guerendo.
I like that. I'm cool with that.
All right, so let's let me actually highlight those just real quick. So I'll go to Benson here. Sometimes we talk over stuff on the show and I forget to do it on the sheet. Okay. All right. Thanks to everybody for being here. Please like the show and subscribe to the channel if you're watching. That's the one way we can let our business partners here know that it's worth the time expenditure to be spending about an hour daily with you guys and all the time it takes to prepare for the show and all the rest of it. We take a lot of pride in it. And we just want to make sure that you guys actually like it. So please like the show, subscribe to the channel. And thanks to everybody who has, man. We've only been doing this daily show for 2 weeks now, and the views are going up and up and up. And so are the podcast listens. So we appreciate you guys, and we appreciate you continuing to, again, please like the show, subscribe to the channel.
Alex, I got one Dynasty question for you before we get in this top 10.
All right.
It's a Dynasty trade. You have Jalen Waddle. You're being offered Quentin Johnston and a 2026 second-round pick. For your information, I have Quentin Johnston 99th overall in the top 250 and Jalen Waddle 79th overall.
So, I mean, just you start out with saying Quentin Johnston, and it automatically makes me.
But Johnston's 24, Waddle's 27. We've seen Johnston's growing. We can say he's growing. I know we hated the pro day, we hated the pre-draft stuff, and but I will just say we have new information, which is these guys that aren't quite developed can work, like the Brian Thomas thing. I'm not saying Johnston's Brian Thomas, but the theory's there. Is a second round pick enough for you to get off of Waddle onto Quentin Johnston?
Nope.
Okay. All right. I got offered the trade, so I had to ask because to me it's like kind of close.
I would insta decline it. I mean, I would. It wouldn't be something where I would tell the guy, "Don't ever offer me a trade again."
Yeah.
But I would just say, "No, man. Like, thanks, but zero interest in that."
That's 'cause you're anti Quentin, then I get it.
Yeah. All right. Top 10 running backs. So number one for both of us in this class, Ashton Jeanty from Boise State, 5'8.5", 211 pounds. No 40 yet still, right?
No, I don't think Ashton's going to run.
He's just not going to.
I don't think he will. He doesn't have a reason to, man. All that would do is hurt his stock.
Yeah. Well, I'm not sure his stock can be hurt right now.
4.7 might hurt it.
That's true. Yeah.
He's not a 4.7 guy, but at 4.7
too. But if you've watched Ashton Jeanty, you know he's not 4.7.
Well, if you watch Jaden Higgins, you know he's not a 4.4. Sorry, it's too soon. Sorry.
I think that for guys like us who are just giant fans of college football, who watch all the football, and I know that many fantasy players like the NFL and they just kind of catch up on college, after the season's over. If you watched college football last year, you know that the Ashton Jeanty freak show was just must-see TV that you would tune into every time you could, especially if it was one of these like Thursday or Friday night games or something like that. It was always a real treat to be able to tune in and watch, because Ashton Jeanty is just something else in a class where you have it's just studs like Omari and Hampton, who would have been the RB1, and we would have been having discussions about Omari and Hampton versus like Bijan in his class and who you like better. Ashton Jeanty, to me, I just keep going back to it was like once a game he had a beastquake kind of run, where he would break 7 different tackles, and you just be like, this guy's an alien. He's not real. How can he even exist? He's like the girl on the airplane. Like that dude's not real. You would just put, you would just point at him and feel like you were going crazy like that. It's unbelievable. We talk about guys' contact balance and stuff like that. Like, I just have to tell you, from a pure film perspective, Ashton Jeanty's contact balance is supernatural. It's the best I've ever seen. He's going to translate at the NFL level. He's going to be terrific. We have comps on him like Marshawn Lynch. I think is a good comp. But I also added in Marshall Faulk, Thurman Thomas. Byron says a little bit of D'Angelo Williams. I have a hard time even thinking about what the downside comp for Ashton Jeanty is. He's that surefire a lock. He's the 101 in all dynasty formats. Cody, do you have a downside comp for Jeanty, and what are your general thoughts?
Well, my general thoughts on Jeanty is I don't know what it is. I don't know who put this into my head, who is to blame for it, but I always have a thing about running backs when I see that 5'8" marker, 5'7", 5'8", it scares me. And Jeanty measured in there, and we saw him in person, and he wasn't like an overpowering, stacked up guy, kind of like Hampton, Amari Hampton from North Carolina is. And we know how prolific he is and was at Boise State alien-like, right? Like the results were, yeah, like you said, alien-like. I don't think he's slow. Like you said, we're not going to get a 40 time out of him. I don't think he's slow or anything like that. As far as like a downside comp for a guy that was mad prolific and potentially like didn't pan out, you ready for it?
No, I'm not sure.
Small school guy, East Coast,
So,
Denver Broncos, D'Angelo Henderson.
okay, well, there's just no.
that's the ultimate floor. And then I'm just saying, I gotta say it. Like, when you're trying to find them, like there's not very many. Maybe you could tell yourself a story about Daryl Henderson who popped and then, right? I don't think he's gonna be a guy that ever hits his floor. More so, I think what could potentially happen is kind of what we talked about yesterday with landing spots, or maybe it was 2 days ago with landing spots in a draft where he goes somewhere that doesn't have the offensive line built around him and they lean too much on him, and you get like a couple of years of this hyper output of 1,000 yard, and then he sort of fizzles out a little bit and doesn't quite fulfill the prophecy of 8 years of dominance like you kind of expect out of a generational back like this. And he doesn't end up being the true running back one in the class. That goes to a guy like, Hampton or Judkins, who profile would lean towards them landing in the spot with a better offensive line. Think like a Pittsburgh or a Denver or something in a more established program rather than like a Genty in like Las Vegas. It's not about Genty failing to me. It's more about another guy being able to consistently last in the NFL. And it could be viewed differently, like, oh, Genty busted because he only lasted a couple of years, but I still think you're going to get some prolific ball out of Ashton Genty.
And the one concern that I would have is like at the NFL level, is he going to be able to just pinball and bounce off everybody the same way?
No, that's the problem. That's the problem. Is like, he forced 151 missed tackles this last year, which was the most in FBS.
It was exhilarating. Edge of your seat, stand up and yell at the TV and say, well, who is he? What even is that?
75% of his rush yards were after contact.
Yeah.
Like, that just won't happen in the end. It's unrealistic to rush for 2,000 yards after contact.
But I can't believe that's a thing.
It'd be different. Like, you could tell yourself a story given what we've seen from Derrick Henry the last couple of years, if Ashton Genty was 6'3", 240. He's not. He's 5'8", 210. Like, it's just he's going to have to win in a little bit different ways than he did in the Mountain West.
But but a top 3 to 5 player on many a draft board of actual NFL teams in this class. So he's got to be your RB1. Cody, I think that we can I think a good way to frame this class is to say, I got to sort it by average here. Because, all right, so we have the same 1, 2, 3, 4. And the correct 1, 2, 3, 4 in this class is Ashton Genty, Omarion Hampton from North Carolina, who's a junior, 5'11" 3/4, 221 pounds. Travion Henderson from Ohio State at 3. Now he's a senior, 5'10", 202 pounds, ran a 4.43. And then Quinshawn Judkins, also from Ohio State. He came out early as a junior. So out of the correct top 4 in the class, that is Quinshawn Judkins, Ohio State junior, 5'11", 5'8", 221 pounds. The thing about the two Ohio State guys is both broke out as freshmen. In Travion's breakout year on September 1st that season, he was 18.86 years old because he has a October birthday. Judkins also has a late October birthday. Whenever he came on board, he wasn't at Ohio State. He was at Ole Miss, and he was 18.84 to start his breakout season as a freshman. The two youngest breakouts of the whole entire running back class were both running backs for Ohio State this year, and both part of our top 4. So Genty, Omarion Hampton, Travion Henderson, Quinshawn Judkins. Cody and I have there's no discrepancy in that, and I think it's totally right. And I honestly think it's obvious. And Do you want to talk about why Omari and Hampton, though, is the clear running back too?
I don't really think it's a clear anything here. The only thing I think is clear is the top four. The top
Sure.
four are the top four.
I kind of think it's a little bit clear with Hampton.
I don't. I think Hampton's obviously really good in his own style. All three of these backs have different styles.
Hampton is awesome, dude.
I agree. I'm not gonna fall to the track of like pulling one guy apart from the other. I think three different backs. I think Hampton's a power back that would be ideal in like a David Montgomery role. Travion Henderson's this elite speed, not speed, but fast with the quicks,
Acceleration.
catches, the burst, the pass protection. He's a little undersized. Should have been RB1 last year. A guy that just brings a lot of different stuff, Joker, to the table. And then you have Quinshon Judkins, who tested out of the world that we didn't expect to happen, running in the 4.4s, jumping 11 feet. He's one that, like, the contact balance that I think can translate, I think, is Quinshon Judkins' contact balance. And, you know, the 40 time for a guy, we've talked about 40s the last two shows in, you know, Matthew Golden's, I don't think it really translates to his play. Jaden Higgins, I don't think it really translates to his play. Quinshon Judkins, it hasn't translated to his play, but at a running back position, I wonder if it might eventually. So these three guys, I think they all win different ways. And I've said it on multiple shows. I think any of these four guys, Genty, Omari Hampton from North Carolina, Travion Henderson from Ohio State, or Quinshon Judkins from Ohio State, you could tell me a story in 6 months, or you could tell me a story in 10 months. Hey, man, X was the running back 1 overall in fantasy football this season. Any four of these rookies can do that.
If you just listen to our, but I mean, okay, well, if you just listen to our comps on these guys, for Omari and Hampton, we have guys like Jonathan Taylor, Adrian Peterson, DeMarco Murray. And I mean,
it's a world-class class.
And then for Travion, we have like Alvin Kamara, Jahmyr Gibbs, Aaron Jones, Trash Man see some Tony Pollard, Felix Jones, that type of player, right? For Quinshon Judkins, I see sort of a
Marion Barber's nails.
Yeah, Marion Barber was my comp. I guess Nick Chubb put in some of these, but it's funny because Nick Chubb is what I think about when I think about Caleb Johnson from Iowa.
I think I put Montgomery in for Caleb. That's the role, I think. I mean, if he lands in Chicago, like, that's the creme de la creme that people are just ignoring right now.
So let's get down to those. But I'm just saying, with Omari and Hampton, been up close. I thought he was RB2. I think that people are underselling what a good clean pass catcher he is. I think that they've been just underselling his size speed combo. It might just be the number 28, but to me, he just looks like JT. Runs like him. We talk about the contact balance. Dude, nothing is Ashton Genty, but he's, for a big, tall guy, he doesn't run like it. I put DeMarco Murray on there just because of the size, but he doesn't present a bunch of surface area. He runs behind his pads, gets up to speed super fast, can pull away from guys. Very, very, very decisive, good vision. It's like he's got it all. I have trouble saying that I think, he could be the RB1 just because of what I saw from Genty this year. It's like I've gotten to the point where I can't do it with Genty anymore. I got to give him the benefit of the doubt. He's done things that I've seen that I just thought weren't physically possible. So it is what it is. Like you said, just an unbelievable running back class. And as we get through those top four, it becomes interesting, and you're going to get a lot of different ideas from a lot of different people around here. Cody and I have the next two guys as our 5 and 6, but we do have them ranked in different orders. I have Caleb Johnson from Iowa as my 5th overall running back in this class. He's a junior, 6'1", 224, only ran the 4.57 at the NFL Combine, which was much slower than a lot of people expected. I wasn't expecting this guy to really ever burn. What I like most about him is what you're beginning, Cody, I've been saying this the whole time, but you're beginning to hear more and more people say it. If you're a zone team and you want a zone runner it's cut and go, find the zone lane, be able to just kind of wiggle his way up in there, always grinding forward for yards. I know the the um, the narrative out there is that he had a really good run blocking and zone blocking offensive line. That's fine. He's going to have one of the NFL too. He's a really good player. My comp for him is Nick Chubb, because he, to me, just looks like a professional zone runner with terrific vision and instincts, and somebody who's all like, I don't see him being. He's one of these guys. If you block 4 yards for him, he's going to get you 7 yards every time. Now, is he going to have, the other guy on this list is RJ Harvey, who I have at 6, you have at 5, who has shown that he has the really elite speed to break away, but kind of smaller, 5'8", 205. Also a redshirt senior. Didn't truly break out until this last season, but when he did, broke out big time. But then goes and blazes a 4.40 with the biggest quads I've ever seen in the whole entire class. I'm in love with the way that the guy looks fit physically. It's a tough for me to rank those two, but I do have Caleb Johnson just a little bit ahead of Harvey. I clearly like them both a lot.
I got an interesting comp question for you with Caleb, but I do want to say, like, I just RJ Harvey, the bump for me came through the process. He's won the pre-draft process for me, from seeing him at the Senior Bowl, talking to him at the Senior Bowl, seeing those quads, and then going to the combine and running the 4.4 flat, which was like, what? Did not expect to see that. And it's just only continued to grow for me. I know he broke out old, but he averaged 8.1 yards per carry against Power 5 opponents. Averaged 1,700 yards this year, 22 touchdowns. I love Harvey. And the one thing we have heard from NFL circles is that he's likely to be the next senior, the next non-underclassman after Traven Henderson of the backs to be drafted, which isn't really saying a lot because the next running backs are like Jarquez Hunter, Bashal Tootin in that conversation. But he's the next upperclassman.
Scatterboo.
Come on. And then Caleb Johnson.
You are gonna live to regret all this Scatterboo.
Listen, I'm old enough to remember I owned a Toby Gerhart jersey at one point.
You're saying this just because he's white.
So what?
Well,
that's because he wears a backwards hat, that doesn't mean I can consider him white, or what?
Well, you're saying like, why not think about like James? I'm old enough to remember James Conner looking just like Cam Scatterboo.
Cam Scatterboo is not jacked like James Conner. Let me give you a Caleb Johnson comp here. Did you say Nick Chubb?
Yeah. He looks a lot like Chubb.
You want to know the answer? The answer to the test? Rarely will I kind of just put a cap on it and say, this is it. I'm going to put one on right here. Ready?
Yeah.
6'1", 226 pounds. Running a 4.61, drafted with the 4th selection in the 2nd round. Broke out 18.9. TJ Yeldon.
That's fine. But they're running. I mean, that's maybe for a size and like comps and stuff like that. I think Yeldon, talk about an upright runner. Yeldon also brought up, it feels like he brought a little bit more as far as the passing game and stuff.
There's really not a lot that's been successful at that 6'1", 220 plus, running over a 4.5 in the 4.5s. Todd Gurley, I'll give it to you. Joe Mixon, 4.5 flat, not quite Caleb.
I mean, that's good. There are a lot of people that compare Omarion Hampton to Joe Mixon in this class.
Arian Foster, he's a 4.7 guy though.
Okay, all right, dude. So let's just talk about Scatterboo, because he's mine. So 5 and 6 for us are Harvey and Caleb Johnson in different orders. I have Cam Scatterboo at 7, and the reason I have him at 7 is because he's uber productive. He's a complete dog. He takes over football games. He's one of the most prolific running backs I can remember seeing, as far as one that can just take over football games and help his team win by any way necessary. He's an excellent pass catcher, an excellent route runner. Not just a dump off option. They actually use, in Dillingham's offense, they actually use him with little choice routes and stuff like this. They use him as an all around ball player. He's impossible to get on the ground. He is. I think that his superpower is his complete elusiveness. He, if he's not catching the ball, or if he's not, going for 25 touches out of the backfield or whatever else, he's throwing touchdowns. He's scat, dude. Like I can't get it out of my head when just watching him. He put fear in the hearts of every opponent that was scouting them. You got to stop him first and foremost. The offense runs completely through him. It's going to be a huge loss for Arizona State to not have him next season. And to me, when I watch him, it reminds me of James Conner from college. That's been my comp the whole time. I think he's exactly right. I just think that calling him a Toby Gerhardt or a Peyton Hillis or whatever is just because he's white.
What do you think? How fast do you think Cam Skattebo is?
4.57. He's as fast as Caleb Johnson.
I don't know about that. I don't know if I agree with that.
What do you think? He's faster?
No, I think he's a 4.6 guy.
I wouldn't be. I don't think he is. I actually think it's more likely that he runs that he runs some kind of 6.449 or something like that. Didn't he jump well?
You think he's? I think he had like a 39-inch vertical.
Whoops. I mean, does that scream sub-athlete to you?
No, but it doesn't scream that he's automatically going to run the 4.4.
A 220-pound guy at just 5'9" with an awesome BMI, jumping 39.5 inches.
I think he's fine. I don't think he's special. Maurice Jones-Drew, of all people.
How can you watch the Texas game and not think that this guy's special?
Because he didn't do a damn thing for 3 quarters.
He was sick.
He didn't do a damn thing. He had like 100. He had like 80. Gosh, I tweeted it out a long time. It'd take me 5 minutes to find the tweets. He had like 81 yards on something like 18 or 20 carries or 20 touches through 3 quarters against Texas. And in the fourth quarter, the late third, early fourth quarter, on like 4 plays, he went from like 80 to like 210.
Okay.
Which is impressive. Don't get me wrong. I'm not going to say it's not. But they locked him down for 3 quarters.
And it was the whole game plan. It's like, exactly. Shouldn't it be something to be said about that?
Well, I mean, what else did
you are the entire game plan for your opponent.
Okay.
Any of these other guys, the entire game plan?
I would say Genty.
Well, I'm not talking about Genty, Hampton. Henderson.
Well, MJD put him at running back 3 in the class, dude.
I'm not sure how much I like that.
I think Caleb Johnson is probably the circle guy on offense. Ollie Gordon is the circle guy on offense for Oklahoma State. Omarion Hampton's a circle guy. Ashton Genty's a circle guy.
It was.
Huh?
In 2023, Ollie Gordon was.
You don't think they still circle him in 2024 with that bastardized roster?
Well, I mean, yeah, it's just hard to draw much from Ollie Gordon in 2024 because the whole team was so bad.
Well, that's who my next guy is. That's who I have right there at 7. You have Skattebo at 7. I have Ollie Gordon at 7. I'm holding the line with Ollie Gordon, man.
Yeah, I mean, have you given it much thought into what it's like the Luther Burden conversation? Luther Burden and Ollie Gordon come out after 2023. It's almost like their stock is better than it is now.
That offensive line was trash. That quarterback play at Oklahoma State, I don't even remember the guy's name now. Bowman, Alan
Bowman.
Horrible. You can't hardly watch a running back tape and not notice how bad the quarterback play is. And Oklahoma State obviously underwhelmed. Their defense wasn't good. Their offensive line wasn't good. And the quarterback play was bottom 5 in the Power 5. I don't blame Ollie Gordon for that because I saw games sitting on your couch when he had the first half against BYU and he broke one loose. And we looked at each other and I go, well, that's Ollie Gordon. And then what did they do in the second half? They went into halftime. That guy had 120 yards on the ground. I put like $100 on him to surpass 170 in that game at halftime. And he had like 20 yards in the second half.
Mm-hmm.
Like they showed what he was. We knew he didn't go anywhere. We both sat there and watched it. Like he was there. The team surrounding him is what completely cocked him.
Ollie Gordon is one of these 6'1" guys in that same 226 profile that Cody says cannot be successful if they run in the 4.5s, and he ran a 4.61. All right, let's. So that's your number 7. My number 8 in this one is Dylan Sampson from Tennessee. It's another one. This is another circle him on the just circle him. Make sure we stop him. The driving force in that Nico Yamaliava offense, right? It was like as Nico was coming along, the steady Eddie in the offense was Dylan Sampson. He's a slasher. He's a smaller slasher. We have a pro day adjusted 4.47 here on him from the other day. And if we're talking about sort of a 5'8", 200-pound, one cut and go slashing running back, he invoked names for us like Bryce Love, Duke Johnson, Kenny Gainwell. The Michael James was one that Cody came up with that I thought was really good. So Dylan Sampson for me, young breakout age. He broke out in his sophomore season. He does have 1,000-yard season on the books, and he'll only be 21 coming into this year. So Dylan Sampson for me at number 8.
For me at number 8, I got Jarquez Hunter. You talked about being a problem.
And I have Jarquez at 9.
There you go. And I have Dylan Sampson just outside the top 10, but I'll talk about the little grouping I have right there that I don't really see much difference in. Jarquez Hunter from Auburn, who you talked about, you said, who's the circle guys? Scattaboo, Gordon, Genty, Hampton, all these guys. Jarquez Hunter told, we were told by SEC coaches during our SEC media calls this year working for Orange Bloods that Jarquez Hunter was a circle guy for coaches. And this guy comes in at 5.093, 204. He surprised us with a 4.4 440, which I didn't really expect. I expected like a 4.51, 4.53, something like this. He averaged 7.2 yards per carry in SEC play this last year, had 21 catches, hit that 20 catch threshold that we love to see, had 1,200 yards on less than 200 carries. I think this guy runs extremely hard. I think the comps are kind of an interesting bucket for him. We have Blake Corum written in, but I don't really have a pure comp for Jarquez Hunter. To me, he's a little slender in the lower quarter for me, but I think this whole grouping for me from 8 at Jarquez Hunter, 9 with Bashal Tootin, 10 Trevor Etienne, and 11 Dylan Sampson are all in the same bucket to me. They're all just kind of like I could move them. I could sit here while you're talking. I could go, well, move this guy up to 8, move this guy down to 10. I could just go back and forth. I like all 4 of them.
And you guys already heard Jarquez Hunter is my number 9. I could maybe move Jarquez ahead of Sampson.
This is the exact point I just made. Like you can tell yourself a story with all these guys.
So I'm going to move him ahead of Sampson. So that's good. Yeah, Hunter and then Sampson, and then number 10 for me is number 9 for you, Bashal Tootin, out of Virginia Tech, 5'9", 206. But just after he blazed the 4.32, I just had to pay attention. Cody says he's like a Justin Forsett type player for him. I see him as a little bit of a Darrell Henderson, DeAndre Washington type, if that makes any sense, just given his size and also, has the pass catching ability as well. Cody talked about that kind of 20 reception threshold, although it's more important to look at the market share, which is like anything north of 10% for these running backs you think is probably going to be okay as far as the way it translates. He was at a 12% market share this last season. Bashal Tootin for me is the one from Virginia Tech is who rounds it out. And then you had Etienne as your number 10.
Yep. My 8, 9, 10 right there is, so Hunter was 8, Bashal Tootin was 9, and my 10th overall running back was Trevor Etienne from Georgia, the brother of Travis Etienne with that sub 20-year-old breakout. No 1,000-yard seasons, but this guy plays big in big games.
We're up against it, Cody. I got to ask you one question here. The one player outside of your top 10 that you're the most scared, you're freaked out. You're like, dude, I look at my ranking on this guy and I could end up, somebody comes back and they see this. They're going to say, dude, that ranking was terrible. You had him way too low. Who are you most scared about?
Dude, always has been, always will be. The bowling ball from Texas Tech, Taj Brooks.
Anthony Richardson, and you're listening to Roster Watch.
This is AJ Brown, and you're listening to Roster Watch.
This is Josh Allen, and you're listening to Roster Watch.